After a few days, rain began to fall. Things went back to normal and the land became fertile again, but the king's mind was never at peace. Decades passed and the village of Akpom flourished until one morning, the villagers woke up and found their unmarried daughters, some as young as 12, all pregnant. Girls who had simply gone to the stream to fetch water that morning found themselves inexplicably pregnant. Panic and confusion took over the land as parents and elders tried to understand what had happened. Once upon a time, in the village of Akpom, there lived a king named Odalije. Odalije I was a great king, loved by his subjects. The land of Akpom was blessed with plentiful harvests. Its people were known as great farmers. Every harvest season, the people made great harvests. But one year, something terrible happened. The rains did not come and the land became dry. The rivers dried and everything seemed barren. The villagers began to worry as their crops failed and their animals grew thin. It was drought. The drought brought great suffering to the people as they soon had barely enough food to sustain them. Odalije I, the great king of Akpom, could not bear to see his people in such distress, and so he called for a meeting with his council of chiefs. In the meeting, they spent a long time dialoguing on the drought issue that had taken away the joy of the people. They made a decision to seek help from wise servants of the goddess, both in Akpom and beyond. And to this effect, the elders were sent to seers in their village, and when they could not get answers to their questions and solutions to their problems, they traveled to other villages and sought help. One day, in a faraway village of Amam, they met a strong seer known as Amumoma. Amumoma, a chief priest in Amam village, was a great seer who traveled across rivers and oceans attending to work morphed into a bat. Amumoma told the elders of Akpom village that they must sacrifice a maiden born on the night of a full moon to the goddess in order to stop the calamity that had befallen their land. The elders conveyed the message from Amumoma to their king Odalije I of Akpom village. The king was perplexed at their words. He did not want to harm any of his people, especially not a young girl. Unfortunately for the king, his only daughter, Princess Okwamma, was born on the night of a full moon and was qualified for the sacrifice. The king's heart was shattered. Odalije I had days of sleepless nights, pondering on the words of the seer. He thought to himself, how could I sacrifice my own daughter, my pride, my joy, to save the village? He knew that if he did nothing, his people would continue to suffer. And so he decided not to mention this to anyone in their village. Instead, he sent his men to search the village for a girl born on the night of a full moon. After a long search, they found a kind and gentle girl whose name was Adure. Adure lived with her parents and younger brother in a small hut in Akpom village. Adure was soon to be married to her betrothed in 4 market days. The king decided to sacrifice Adure instead of his daughter Okwamma. He believed this was the only way to save his village without losing his beloved daughter. Adure's parents loved her so much and they pleaded with the king to find another means, but the king told them that sacrificing their daughter was the only way to deliver their land from this calamity and bring back rain to their village. Adure cried uncontrollably as she asked for the king to set her free and let her be married to the man she loved so much and was looking forward to their future together. But the king remained firm in his decision. Unbeknownst to everyone, Adure was already with a child at that time. As the villagers prepared for the sacrifice, the king declared a day of mourning and preparation. Though the people were saddened, they understood the need for Adure's sacrifice to be made. On the day of the sacrifice, Adure was dressed in a beautiful white gown and a crown on her head. She looked like a princess, but her heart was heavy with sorrow. She thought of the unborn child and the life she would never get to live. And as the moon reached its highest point in the sky that night, King Odalije spoke to the gods, pleading for the mercy and the return of the rain. And they buried Adure alive, with the hope that the sacrifice would save their land. Adure's parents, her betrothed, and the entire village mourned her death. After a few days, rain began to fall. Things went back to normal and the land became fertile again, but the king's mind was never at peace. Decades passed and the village of Akpom flourished until one morning, the villagers woke up and found their unmarried daughters, some as young as 12, all pregnant. Girls who had simply gone to the stream to fetch water that morning found themselves inexplicably pregnant. Panic and confusion took over the land as parents and elders tried to understand what had happened. The king, who had always been prepared for what was to come after the decision he had made a couple of decades ago, secretly sought help from Amumoma. When Amumoma visited the palace, he told the king that out of selfishness he had willingly sacrificed another's child to save his own, and that act of his has brought pains to the village. He told Odalije one that Adure was with a child when the sacrifice was made, and had in anger on finding out about the king's decision to sacrifice her instead of his daughter Opamma cursed the village. Amumoma further told the king that the maidens of the land shall bear the burden of his decision, and that from that time on, any unmarried maiden who drinks from the village stream or sleeps under its skies will find herself with a child. Odalije pleaded for the goddess to have mercy on him as he asked for a way to appease her. Amumoma told King Odalije one that the goddess values sincerity and true repentance, and to appease her he must make a public apology and seek forgiveness from Adure's parents and the maidens of the land. King Odalije, saddened by the outcome of his act of selfishness, called for an emergency meeting. The villagers all gathered in the palace, and with a broken and contrite spirit, with tears rolling down his cheeks, he said to his people, "My dear villagers, the goddess has cursed us because of my actions. I sought to save my daughter at the expense of another. My daughter Okwamma was born on the night of a full moon, and instead of using her for the sacrifice, I used Adure. And now we all suffer the consequences of my selfishness." He publicly apologized to Adure's family and all the maidens. He admitted his wrongdoings and vowed to never let such an injustice occur again. He promised to honor Adure's sacrifice and ensure that her family was well cared for. Adure's father, though saddened by the king's confessions, felt the sincerity with which he spoke and accepted his apology. He then addressed and urged the villagers to forgive the king and move forward as a united community. Adure's parents, with the king and villagers, joined hands in one accord and prayed for forgiveness, and the curse was lifted. Families whose daughters were pregnant took in their pregnant daughters and offered them care and protection. The pregnant maidens' betrothed accepted and promised to stand by their sides despite the unexpected turn of events. The pregnancies grew till they were due for delivery, and each child born was considered a blessing rather than a curse. The villagers learned to cherish and protect each other always. Joy returned to Akpom, and the people all lived happily ever after. A huge thank you to you all, my favorite people, for listening to my stories. Your support means the world to me, and I couldn't do this without you. Your likes, comments, and shares keep me motivated to create more stories for you all. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the post notification bell so you never miss out on any of my new stories. Thanks again, and see you in the next story.